It's time once again for our winter giveaway. This giveaway is very simple to enter. Be a patron. So the easiest way to enter is go to patreon.com/comicsfunprofit. Become a patron at any level at our Patreon site, and you can do it that way. You can also enter by going to Threadless and buying some merch and tagging us in a photo of you in said merch. So if you like one of our t-shirts or hats or whatever, and you go to comicsfunprofit.threadless.com and find all our merch and like some of it, buy it, wear it. You can either tag us in social with you wearing it, or send us a photo of you wearing it, and you're entered. So those are the two ways: be a patron and buy merch, and then you get entered in our winter giveaway, which is fun swag giveaways of photos and stickers and signed comics, just like our fall giveaway was. And we had 5 lucky winners win stuff in our fall giveaway. So we're hoping to have as many entrants this time that we can give away that many again. So be a patron, buy merch, enter the winter giveaway. Thanks.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing Scribe Award nominee Marsheila Rockwell. Now, during this interview, Marsheila gave me permission to call her Marcy. So I'll be calling, and it's obvious I'll be calling Marcy. I'll be mentioning, I'll be saying her name throughout the interview. Now, Marcy is here to promote Marvel Zombies: The Hunger from Aconyte books. Now, this book is already out in stores, and I got my copy, and Marcy knows I just started reading it. It's very good. I love the first 2 chapters already. Can't wait to read the rest of the story. Marcy, welcome to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Aloha.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Now, listeners, I just want to go over some of Marcy's background and previous work. She is a civil engineer. She has written numerous short fictions and poetry. She has written some tie-in books, and I'll just name a couple: the Shard Axe and the Skin of Shadow. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing those titles correctly. It's a Dungeon and Dragons book tie-in. She's also co-written some books with her husband, Jeffrey J. Marriott. Seven Psychos, and Psychos is spelled Sykos. It's a zombie story where a group of psychos are unaffected by the disease. That sounds pretty awesome. It does. And also Mafia 3, Playing for Jars. That's a video game tie-in. And also too, she's also they have also co-written a number of at least a couple comic books, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. Screen Screen Cream that appeared in the Evil Dead 2 Tales of X Moritz #2. Did I get everything correct, or did you want to add anything, Marcy?
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of it. We have done some other comic book stuff together, but that hasn't been released. And I have um a comic book script as part of a like an anthology thing that's will be coming out from Monster Forge next year probably, but that's all I can say about that right now.
Okay.
Uh, um and oh there I should say technically I'm required to say I am no longer
Hmm.
a practicing civil engineer.
Okay. All right.
So
No, that's understandable. But I'm also gonna say this too. Even though you're no longer working in the field, just the knowledge, the education also kind of helps you um write your stories. And listeners, I will get a little bit more into where I got that info, where I got some of that the meaning behind, because you did a previous interview, and I'll get to that in a moment. But like I said, I think, but I just wanted to mention that because it's kind of, again, it helps you structure your with your stories. And and I think it's great. So I'm sorry. Let me just finish up one more thing. You will have also written for Aconyte Books, Marveled Untold Sisters of Sorcery.
Yes.
Um, that's it. Okay, yeah. Um, Now, before I continue, I want to give a big shout out to Carrie Harris for hooking us up for this interview. Carrie, thank you very much. I also want to give a shout out to Ashley Stevens from Aconite Books. And then also to listeners, as I mentioned, before that, I got some of the information, especially where Marcy's background in civil engineering comes from. I got some of my information from the Dear Watchers podcast, episode 65, interview conversation with Marsheila Rockwell. Now, that was dated on October 3rd, 2022. If you guys get a chance, please check out that interview. Marcy, I'm kind of going off the cuff here. That's where I love that's how I found out that I know you're a civil engineer, and like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but also too, that's where it's like, you have to kind of logically, figure out how things are going to work when you're designing things and so forth. But I also think that also helped you how you also write and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of also helps you write your stories as well too. Yeah.
Um, it does help. It's in terms of structuring things.
Hmm.
It also helps that my background is actually, although I've written original novels and original work, my background is in tie-in. That's my first novel was a tie-in novel, and the way tie-in novels work, it's a little bit different from
Hmm.
the idea most people have that you write a book and then you try and sell it.
Hmm.
With a tie-in novel, um, they come to you and ask you to write the book,
Hmm. Yes.
and you have to give them a really detailed outline.
Hmm.
So I learned how to outline my books. So structure was like how I learned how to write
Hmm.
novels,
Yes.
um, and logical progression. Um, you know, is just comes naturally to me. There are some drawbacks to that.
Hmm.
My
Yes.
plots can be a little linear,
Hmm.
um, because that's very much how an engineer thinks, at least a civil engineer. It's very
Yes.
linear. So sometimes, like you mentioned, my husband, Jeff, who's also a writer, he's also my first reader, my beta reader. He reads
Hmm.
everything that I write. And he's really good at saying, oh, you could use this to make a subplot and leave this in here. And,
Hmm.
he,
Yes.
he helps me to make things a little less linear and a little less engineer-like. So that's very, very helpful. And I'm very grateful for that.
And also too, I'm going to add a little bit more too, but like when you write for tie-in books, and we'll get a little bit more into that. Well, maybe not too much, but um, for the tie-in books, you also have to follow guidelines that the whoever owns the rights to says, okay, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, because it. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as a civil engineer, it's like you have to follow code, building
Oh,
codes and structures, and
yes.
you kind of go, okay, I understand. I don't like to do this, but I understand we have to do this because you can't,
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You have to follow the rules that the IP holder, the intellectual property or license holder, sets out.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, it's their property, so
Yes.
um, you don't own the copyright to anything
Hmm.
that you write. Um, but also, you're not writing in a vacuum. There are lots of other people who are writing generally in the same property at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And you don't know what they're writing,
Hmm.
but the IP holder does. And so they have to make sure that all of these different people writing all of these different stories aren't contradicting each other.
Oh yes,
So
yes, yeah.
so that's also part of the reason. And they know what's coming up, right?
Hmm.
You can only base your work on what's already been published,
Hmm.
but they know what's upcoming that you don't have, you're not privy to. So when they give you, no, you can't do that, or
Mm-hmm.
we want you to go this direction. A lot of times you don't understand why, but it's because they have something in the works that they
Yes.
can't tell you about yet. So yeah, there's a lot of rules that you have to follow, but you also get to play in these incredible sandboxes with characters that you oftentimes grew up loving. So,
Oh, yes. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for for talking to me a little bit about that. Um, Marcy, where can listeners follow you on social media?
well, you can always go to my website. It's marsheilarockwell.com. And Marsheila is spelled Marsheila. And then Rockwell is just like it sounds, ROCKWELL.com. And on the contact page, it lists all my social media, but I'm on Twitter or
Hmm.
X, whatever you want to call it. It's Marcy Rockwell on Twitter. I'm on
Hmm.
Blue Sky and Instagram.
Hmm.
I think all of those are probably Marcy Rockwell. They might be Blue Sky might be Marsheila Rockwell.
Hmm.
Um, I have a Facebook author page. Um, I do have a Mastodon account that
Oh
I
my God,
never
yeah.
ever go on anymore, and
Yeah.
and like a TikTok that I don't use.
Hmm.
Um, but the best place to like keep up with what I'm actually doing
Hmm.
is Twitter and Blue Sky, and
Okay.
then stuff gets posted there first, and
Hmm.
then it goes to my blog
Hmm.
and to my Facebook author page. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Now,
mhm.
on your website, on your welcome page, you call yourself a castle builder, and you also have a poem titled "The Castle Builder" by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. May I ask, like, why is this poem important to you?
It's so funny that you ask that. Nobody's ever asked me that question before. Honestly, I wanted a castle theme for my website.
Hmm.
And so I always like to include quotes in things
Hmm.
wherever I can. My original stuff often has different quotes from poems or like Shakespeare.
Hmm.
My titles will come from that. So I was searching for quotes that included castles,
Hmm.
and I came across his poem,
Hmm.
and I'm like, this is exactly what a writer does.
Hmm.
They build castles,
Hmm.
in the air. The poem is all about imagination
Yes.
and all the incredible worlds that you build with your imagination. So I thought it was a perfect tie-in to
Hmm.
as a writer, and because I wanted a picture of castles on my website. So
No, again, Marcy, thank you very much for answering that question. Thank you.
yeah, of course.
Now, I'm gonna go into your origins. Now, what books did you read while you were growing up?
Well, I think anybody who's read any of my stuff or listened to any interviews probably already knows that the first book I ever read, I learned to read when I was 3, and the first book I ever read was Ozma of Oz.
Hmm.
So I grew up reading the Oz books, the Narnia books,
Hmm.
everything that Tolkien wrote. So
Hmm.
not just The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but the
Hmm.
Silmarillion books. He's written poetry,
Hmm.
um, like fairy tales, all kinds of different things. So, and then like Robert E. Howard and
Wow.
um,
Yes. Hmm.
Stephen King,
Hmm. Yeah.
obviously, Stephen R. Donaldson,
Hmm.
who I had the privilege of meeting and having dinner with once, and Guy Gabriel Kay,
Hmm.
who wrote the Fiona Barr Tapestry series, which is one of my all-time favorite
Hmm.
trilogies. Uh, Marion Zimmer Bradley's stuff. I know
Yes.
she has become problematic later in life, but
Mhm.
at the time when I was reading
Yeah.
her books and the anthologies that she put out, the Sword and Sorceress anthologies,
Hmm.
I just ate that stuff up. I loved it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, basically, I grew up pretty poor, but the one thing that we always had access to was books. And my
Yes.
mom
Hmm.
got books from the thrift store
Hmm.
or wherever. And,
Hmm.
she never put any limits on what we were allowed to read.
Hmm.
So, that was my escape.
Hmm.
So if I could get my hands on it, I read it. I read a lot of romance too, but
Hmm.
you know, just whatever. And I read my way through the entire kids section of my school library.
Hmm.
So
Do not take this the wrong way. I think that's so great that that um you read a lot of um books in different genres. I mean, we're talking about fantasy, like you said, you read romance books, you you read Robert E. Howard books too. Like the only thing I can think of right now is the Conan books. I'm gonna say, oh shoot, I can't even think of his other Solomon King. I can't remember his other books right now. But that is amazing. That's incredible. I'm gonna say that is so cool. Um, I'm gonna move on. Comics. What comics did you read while you were growing up?
well, I inherited a collection of older comics like Richie Rich and
Yes.
a
Hmm.
bunch of Archies. So I
Hmm.
read a ton of that stuff. But Wonder Woman,
Hmm. Yes.
she was, is, and always will be my favorite character.
Hmm.
So someday I hope to get to write her. That's like on my bucket list as a writer.
That'd be nice.
Um,
Hmm.
I also, Marvel specific. I read the Defenders and
Hmm.
Alpha Flight.
Hmm.
I grew up in Montana,
Hmm.
so I really connected with the Alpha Flight characters because they were in Canada, and
Yeah.
um, a lot of times in Montana we're like, yeah, we're north, we're South Canada,
Hmm.
so
Yeah. See, yeah.
and I read the Avengers too, but
Oh,
honestly, I like the Defenders better because they they had Hellcat and Valkyrie and Medusa, I believe, was on there in there sometimes.
hmm.
And I like the women characters. I like Scarlet Witch too,
Hmm.
but she didn't get as many cool stories back then.
Hmm.
Um, she she gets a lot better storylines now, which I'm very happy to see.
That's good. Yes. Now I'm gonna ask, like, while when did you decide to become a writer?
I feel like I've always wanted to write. I
Hmm.
don't remember a time where I didn't
Hmm.
write. Um, I remember specifically in a writing assignment in like sixth grade where we were supposed to write like a 1 or 2 page story, and I wrote a 20-page Conan pastiche with complete with a reluctant hero rescuing a princess and a talking cat. So
That is so cool. That is at first, in sixth grade. That and I off the cuff question, do you remember what your teacher's response was? Because I'm sure they're kind of going, "Whoa, why is she writing a Conan story?"
um well, I was always a straight A student.
Hmm.
So I I was extra.
No. Hmm.
So they weren't particularly surprised.
Okay.
They, I mean, I was always reading.
Hmm.
I brought books to class and read
Hmm.
in class because I always finished my homework
Hmm.
early. So they were not at all surprised that I was writing stuff like that. So
I think
I
that's
I, I probably if I'd written it today, I might have gotten sent to the counselor. But
Yes. Yeah, because um now while you were working towards your degree in civil engineering, did you take like extra courses in writing or literature, literature classes, beyond the recommended college courses? Did you take any extra things or?
no, my extra classes were in things like geology
Hmm.
and psychology and sociology.
Yes.
So, honestly, I think I took one creative writing class,
Hmm.
and uh, it's the thing that you always hear about college creative writing classes, that they're just so structured to death,
Hmm.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't follow certain literary things then. And I've always written genre stuff.
Hmm.
Like I have very little interest in writing,
Hmm.
what you would consider mainstream
Hmm.
fiction. So it just wasn't for me. I didn't get anything out of it,
Hmm.
and I didn't see any reason to waste my time.
Yeah.
You know, I know other people get a lot out of it, and that if that's their jam, that's great.
Hmm.
It wasn't for me. So
But I think it's great that you took um, geology, sociology, and also psychology too. You know, I again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of nice because then it kind of, I would think that would help you a little bit more with writing, for you to write things, you
I
know.
also took philosophy classes.
Oh yeah, philosophy, yes, you know. So at least you have, just kind of like the basic understanding of certain things, and you would bring that to when you're writing certain books or tie-in books or short stories or poems. But I think that's great. Yeah. Um. Now in 1994, now I got this. Now if I remember correct, I think I got this from your website. In 1994, you sold your very first short story. May I ask what was the title of it, and where was it published? Like, was it in a magazine or an anthology book?
Um, Back then, Marion Zimmer Bradley had a magazine that she put out, Marion Zimmer Bradley's Fantasy Magazine.
Hmm.
And that's where it was published. It was called Lesser Known Myths of Greece #9,
Hmm.
Mara the Minoan.
Hmm.
So, and it was about it was basically a twisted Greek myth
Hmm.
with a character who interacted with the gods and kind of turned some of their tropes against them,
Hmm.
so that she could get what she needed and wanted out of them instead
Hmm.
of the other way around. But it was really exciting because I read that magazine all the time. I read
Yes.
the anthologies, the Sword and
Mhm.
Sorceress anthologies. Um, so a lot of times, advice that writers get is to know the market that you're submitting to.
Hmm.
That was the first uh, story I ever submitted anywhere, and the first market I ever submitted it to.
Hmm.
And it was a pro sale. So, like, like my career didn't, it started with a bang. It didn't keep going that way, but I knew that market
Hmm.
because I read it all the time. So that is really good advice. A lot of people don't follow it. I don't always follow it, but
Hmm.
I mean, it is good advice, and people give it for a reason, because it really does increase your chances of selling to a particular market if you know it back and forth. So
Now I'm going to ask, how did you feel when you finally saw your name on that magazine?
I was pretty excited. It was hard to find, uh,
Yes. Hmm.
because I was like back in the days before you could just order stuff off of Amazon.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yes.
try and find it in bookstores, and not every bookstores carried
Yes.
that sort of thing. But I did find several copies, and that was pretty exciting. Around the same time, I also got an honorable mention in what's now the Dell Award, but back then was called the Isaac Asimov Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Science Fiction and Fantasy Writing. So they shortened it quite a bit. And that was even more exciting because that had Isaac Asimov's name on it. And I got a t-shirt. So,
Oh my God. It's sad that they changed the name of the award.
it is. And what's also really cool is that Cory Doctorow also won an honorable mention the same year that I did. So that's my claim to fame. I won the same award that Cory Doctorow did.
Cool. That is really nice. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much. But I think that's so cool that you honorary, an honorary award from the, that Isaac Asimov award. That sounds so cool. That is so cool. Oh, all right. I'm gonna say let's just jump into Marvel Zombies: The Hunger. Now, what is this story about?
Basically, it ties into the Marvel Zombies comic books, which the premise of those is that there is this virus that hits the Earth, and it targets superheroes, and it turns them it's super fast, and it turns them into ravenous zombies, and they want to eat people, and they'll eat each other too. And so basically the comic books are a lot about them trying to figure out, once they eat everything on Earth,
Yes.
trying to figure out, well, how do we find new places to get food?
Yeah.
So and also Spider-Man is one of the main characters, and he's in the comic books, once they have eaten, they regain some of their rationality. So during his rational periods, he's the only one who's oh my God, what am I doing? This is the opposite of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be heroes and save people, and we're eating them. And he's the only one who questions what they're doing. Everybody else, when they're have their periods of rationality, they're just okay, what can we do to figure out how to get more food?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So I actually kind of thought that the comics were a little bleak.
Yeah.
But the book isn't like the comics. It has the same setup. There's this virus that hits the planet, but it's our angle with Aconyte wasn't. We weren't going to focus on heroes who how do we get food to eat?
Yes.
And we weren't going to focus on how do we cure the virus?
Yes.
We wanted to tell stories about people who maybe they were trying to figure out a cure, but that wasn't the story. The story is what they go through in the process. So it's about their journey and their growth, and in particular, one of the main characters is Zelma Stanton, who is a librarian.
Yes.
She's an apprentice to Dr. Strange. She runs his library for him. And in the book, this isn't a spoiler because it tells you on the back, but she's one of the first Avengers to get turned into a zombie. And during his rational period, he tells Zelma that she needs to, you need to save the world. We
Yes.
need to figure out how to take care of this. And so that kind of sets her on her quest. But
Mm-hmm.
she's not a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she knows how to use some magic
Mm-hmm.
because she runs the library. So
Yes.
she
Mm-hmm.
has this access to the greatest magical library in
Mm-hmm.
the world at that
Mm-hmm.
point. But you know, she's not an Avenger. She doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have a suit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she doesn't have a cape. And so it's about her journey. Uh, you know, it's partially about her journey to self-confidence and using her power. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, she's trying to save the world, but she's also trying to figure out who she is. And
Mm-hmm.
you
Yes.
know, so that was the idea behind the books was that, or this book was that it was not going to focus on the same thing that the comics
Yes.
focused
Mm-hmm.
on. You know, it was going to be more about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know some people have read the book and not liked that
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't basically the comics in
Yeah.
prose form,
Mm-hmm.
but that was never what they were intended to be.
Yes.
So,
I just want to make a comment on that, and I'm glad it's not, because then it's almost like, okay, I'm just glad it's focusing during the zombie outbreak, but there's different stories that you can tell. And also too, I love it when because and listeners, Zelma Stanton is in the Marvel comics. And I'm a long time I've been reading comics for how long? And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know who this character was. I had to look her up on whatever that Marvel Wikipedia thing.
mhm.
What I love about it, um, and if I remember correct, I think it's in the second chapter that you give like a brief origin story of Zelma. So I come up to speed of who she is, why is she, who is this character, and also too at the same time too, like you said, um, it's a character story because Zelma in the second chapter, not only do I know who she is, how she got some of her powers and stuff, but also too, she's already going, I have doubts. I'm not a hero. You know, I, you know, I'm just in this house with taking care of the library. I'm not a hero or anything. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Jason says hi, Jeff. He's waving.
Sorry, listeners. Marcy told me before we begin that she shares her office with Jeff, and I told her that's fine. We'll just say hi to him. So, um, going back, but I love how you just set up Zelma in in the second chapter. I know who she is, where this, and you've already laid the groundwork for her, and just to keep moving forward. Um, and then I'm going to ask you, like, who are also the other main characters in this book too?
The next character you get introduced to is Nico Minoru from
Hmm.
The Runaways. Um, and she's got her own baggage.
Hmm.
And then together, uh, Nico has met Elsa Bloodstone
Hmm.
before. They worked together previously. And Nico's like, well, we have this monster outbreak, and who's better at killing monsters than Elsa Bloodstone?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
we need the monster hunter.
Hmm.
So they go to find Elsa, and uh, Elsa and Deadpool happen to be together, and
Hmm.
for reasons that you will discover, and I'm not going to spoil. Um, and then that quartet is the group that moves forward, and they try to figure out how they can hopefully stop the zombies, or
Hmm.
in this case, they want to stop the zombie apocalypse from ever having happened in the first place.
Hmm. Yes. So, before we get a little bit more into the story, I want actually because already it's already in the back of No, actually, I'm going to mention because it's already in the back of the novel that it's already there's, one of the plans to trap the zombies, and I'm reading this from the back of the book, is in a time loop.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to go a little bit back, and one of my questions, how did you come up with the story for Aconyte?
Um, a lot of the story elements were ones that Marvel and Aconyte suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the story that we actually settled on was kind of a marriage between a couple of storylines that they had suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the time loop was kind of their idea,
Mm-hmm.
but the various stops on the time loop, those
Mm-hmm.
were mine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and focusing on Zelma as the main character, that was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
Zelma and Nico were, they might have thrown Nico out as a possibility, but um, Zelma was the one that I chose to focus on. And then having her and Nico be the main point of view characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Elsa and Deadpool, but
Mm-hmm.
they are not POV characters.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they were characters that Marvel and Aconyte, wanted to be in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose not to make them POV characters because they're both a lot better known than
Mm-hmm.
Zelma and Nico,
Yes.
and Deadpool, especially.
Oh,
People
yes.
all have their own ideas about Deadpool and
Mm-hmm.
who he is and how he
Yes.
thinks and how he should act. And like, there was no way I was going to be able to be in his head
Mm-hmm.
and satisfy
Oh,
every
yes.
reader, every Deadpool
Oh,
fan out
yes.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a decision that I made to try and portray him just through Zelma and Nico's perceptions of him.
Yes.
Um, so, and I know that even just doing that, I'm still not going to make every Deadpool fan out there
Mm-hmm.
happy,
Yeah.
but um, I did the best I could for
Mm-hmm.
Deadpool fans.
Yes.
So I had fun writing him,
Yes.
regardless. Hopefully
Yes.
people will have fun reading him.
Mm-hmm. I want to take two steps back, and this is an off-the-cuff question. Um, did Aconyte come to you going, "Hey, Marcy, we want you to write another book, like a Marvel tie-in book," or did they have something like an open call to like their writers that they work with, going, "Hey, we want to do a Marvel zombie book." How did that work out? How did
I had actually, I had previously written the Marvel Untold book, Sisters of Sorcery,
Yes.
which featured um, Clea and uh, Margali Zardos, um, Elizabeth Two Youngman,
Mm-hmm.
Talisman, Agatha Harkness,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and uh, really reaching into the depths of uh, comic continuity with Holly LaDonna, who nobody who has not read 60s Scarlet Witch and Vision comics would
Mm-hmm.
ever even know that she existed, but
Mm-hmm.
she was there and I took advantage of her. So I'd written those characters and I had so much fun with that book and I loved writing those characters so much. I wanted to go back and write some more.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pitching more books to them
Oh,
with
okay.
Elizabeth and Agatha. Um, and then they said, you know what? They came to me and they said, we actually are looking at starting a new line
Mm-hmm.
that's more along horror lines
Yes.
with Marvel zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And, we think the way you write, you like dark fantasy and horror, and we think you would be perfect for this. So
Mm-hmm.
they came to me and asked me to write the first book in what was, intended to be a new line.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't pitch for it. They came to me, and so that was pretty cool. I was honored.
That is so nice. I want to go back and ask you about Zelma because correct me if I'm because I'm before we did the pre-interview stuff that Zelma was kind of sort of not in this in you were the one that brought Zelma to ask you asked Aconyte if you could bring Zelma Stanton in. Is that correct?
Yeah, she was my character.
Excuse me. Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times when you're writing about superpowered characters,
Mm-hmm.
it can be really hard um, for readers to
Mm-hmm.
relate to
Yeah.
them, right? So for me as a reader, it's always easier for me to get into books like that if there's a point of view character who isn't, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
super powered and can
Mm-hmm.
do everything and solve all the problems. And also, she's a librarian. And I had run across her because in my previous book, I was reading all the Doctor Strange books
Mm-hmm.
because Clea was in them. And Zelma was Doctor Strange's apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
So I had run across her in my previous reading and thought she was intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And there hadn't been very much done with her at
Mm-hmm.
that point. So that would allow me to put kind of my own spin on her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Plus, she's a librarian, and
Yes.
librarians are the real superheroes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
um, and we talked before. I the book is dedicated um, to librarians everywhere, but especially to my elementary school librarian,
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Kimpton, uh, because she saw in me um, not only somebody who was hungry to read, but somebody who needed to read.
Mm-hmm.
Like, uh, I didn't have the best childhood, so reading books was my escape.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And she opened the library to me. She
Mm-hmm.
let me check out whatever books I wanted to check out, as many books as I wanted to check out, as often as I wanted to check them out. Like, she saw that I was hungry and
Mm-hmm.
that I needed it, and she let me, take my fill.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will be forever grateful to her for
Mm-hmm.
that. So
No, but thank you very much for sharing that. That's really nice. Thank you. Um, Now as I mentioned, the story deals with a time loop. Um, may I ask who came up with that idea?
the time loop was something that Marvel and Aconyte
That's right.
kind of floated.
That's right. You mentioned that. I'm sorry. That's right. Um, and then did you set up rules for the time loop for your story and how it worked? Or did Marvel and Aconyte say, this is how the time loop's going to work?
The rules of the time loop were really dictated by what I had already read,
Mhm.
mostly Doctor Strange comics,
Oh, okay.
because he dealt with time loops before,
Mm-hmm.
and their original entry into the time loop is via a book
Mm-hmm.
that um, Doctor Strange had used before to
Mm-hmm.
enter the time loop. So, uh, I just followed the same kind of rules that he did. And when there were situations that hadn't been covered in the comics that I had read,
Hmm.
then I kind of just made up the rules that
Yeah.
seemed to make the most logical sense and not break with continuity.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Um, I think it's great that you guys put that in, that, Marvel said, put a time loop in because it adds a nice spin to the zombie story, to zombie storylines. Because like you said, I'm going off the cuff, I'm going to start rambling a little bit because I mean, most zombie books are, it's either, how survivors try to live, after the zombie apocalypse, or try to find a cure. And that's basically the only thing that most stories can go with. But I love how they add the time loop because it just adds a little bit a different flavor to it and makes it a little bit more, uh, yeah, just a little more exciting to read too. So
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
little
that's
bit, it's a different approach, right?
yes,
Because like it's not something, for instance, that you could do with The Walking Dead. They can't
yeah,
go back in time
oh
and
yeah,
make it so that the virus never spreads,
yeah,
right? So it's an option that you have once as soon as magic is
yes,
involved.
mm-hmm,
So like we have this option, so let's use it. It hasn't really been done too many places. I mean, time loops are done all the time,
yeah,
but time loops and zombies not really done too much. So
yes,
let's try it.
yeah. Um, did you have fun putting in small little cameos of Agatha Harkness? Now, listeners, I'm going to mention this is not the Catherine Hahn Agatha Harkness. You're talking about the old school Agatha Harkness, where we don't know how old she is, but she's always elegant, eloquent. I love how her hair is always made, and
Yeah.
she can be soft and very moving, but yet she can be very hard and stern when she needs to be. And she has that face of "don't mess with me" type. But oh, it was great. So how did you have fun putting little cameos of her and also Elizabeth, two young men in this book?
I did. Like I wasn't going to be able to write an Agatha book or an Elizabeth book, but I sure as heck was gonna,
Hmm.
you know, get them in there somehow. So
Hmm.
um, I just that little cameo there at the very beginning. And you know, if there is a second book
Yes.
eventually,
Hmm.
um, hopefully,
Hmm.
maybe we'll get to see more of those characters.
Yes. Um, Off the cuff question. Um, and like I said, it's off the cuff question. If Aconyte comes back to you, go, can you write an Agatha Harkness book? And we're not, again, we are looking at the old school Agatha Harkness. Do you have a story lined up?
Oh yeah, I've already pitched several stories to
Okay,
them. So
we're gonna leave it at that. Yeah. God. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to say this. I just hope includes the Salem 7.
several of the pitches do, yes.
Oh my God. Okay. Sorry.
And and Nicholas
Oh,
Scratch. Yes.
yes. Oh my God. Because I know they've made a very big impact. Yeah, gotta remember. I'm trying to remember the the issues. I think Fantastic Four 175 and 176. I mean, I know they've appeared off and on throughout the years, but just those first those first two inch those first two issues that when they were introduced, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. It was great. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna continue on. Let's see. I'm going to slowly start wrapping things up. So, would you like to give shout outs to those who helped you on the book?
Yeah, they already are in the acknowledgments of the book, but I am happy to give shout outs to them
Yes.
again. To my editor, Gwen Nix, who, even though she went to the wrong school, is awesome. And I loved working with her, and she helped make my book better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a good editor does. So I'm very appreciative to her. Um, Chad Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
Gavin, I'm going to screw up his last name, so I'm not even going to try. He is the librarian at the Billings Public Library in Montana. I could not, I'm embarrassed to admit that I could not remember Mrs. Kimpton's last name.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really wanted to have her in my dedication. Mm-hmm. So Jeff actually knew Gavin and
Mm-hmm.
contacted Gavin. And so Gavin went through all of the old school yearbooks
Mm-hmm.
until he found the faculty for me. And I was like, oh, there she is. It's Mrs. Kimpton. So I was really appreciative to him for taking the time to find her for me so that I could thank her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Carrie Harris, which you
mm-hmm.
already mentioned, she is my own personal Jamie Lee Curtis. So she's a great cheerleader, and I really appreciate her. Kathy and Angie, Catherine, they all know why I would thank them. Of course, my husband, Jeff, who I've already mentioned multiple times, and our children, Arthur, Francis, Max, Holly, and David. They're all wonderful and supportive, and I couldn't do it without them, and I do it for them.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, that's a cool story about how you included Jeff in the book. That's so nice that you guys contacted him, who's a librarian, back when you're checking out books. That is nice. That is really nice. So, what was your favorite thing or things that you love working on this novel?
I really liked writing Zelma. I liked writing Nico too. And I liked one of the things I really like is being able to find things in the comics that tie together. And the very first stop that they make in the time loop, that is not something I made up. That existed already. So I just found it and piggybacked on it. But I love doing stuff like that. I love finding things that are already there. The end time loop situation and why the big bad that they are dealing with through most of this is even in the story. And how that person, gets there. That story was already something that was in the comics. So I was just able to bring those two things together.
Yes.
Into the storyline. And I just love the synchronicity of storylines that are already there that you can tie together. And I think it's a great Easter egg for people who are comic book fans, not just fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is great, but the people who read the comic books and have read them for forever.
Yes.
And they'll read it and they'll go, oh my God, I read that. I remember that. I can't believe that she pulled that out. I love that.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to read the rest of the book. Because I'm going to tweet it out to you, because when I come across, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, I hope you enjoy those little Easter eggs.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to talk about you're part of a Kickstarter campaign Now it's called Shifting, Swirling Heritage, an all new anthology. Now, listeners, this Kickstarter campaign is live, and Marcy, I'm sorry because I think I found out about this like last week or something. Now, the campaign will end on Thursday, March 13th. We at Comics for Fun and Profit will try to do our best to release this interview before the campaign ends. But I'm going to ask you, what is this anthology? What is this anthology about?
The anthology is alternate history stories where women um, change the course of history,
Hmm.
the course of the future, the course of the world for the better.
Yes.
So some of the ideas are like, what if Joan of Arc had not been burned at the stake?
Hmm.
What if Diana, Princess of Wales, had not died and
Hmm.
had gone on to become queen?
Yes.
Um, my own particular story
Hmm.
deals with something that is very personal to me.
Hmm.
Um, I am Chippewa Red River Métis,
Hmm.
and the Métis were are an Indigenous group in Canada, and they were fighting for their rights against the Canadian government in the late 1800s.
Hmm.
There's something called the Northwest Resistance. Canada calls it the Northwest Rebellion.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a key battle there called the Battle of Batoche,
Hmm.
which, if the Métis had won that battle, the borders of Canada and northern US, like Montana,
Hmm.
North Dakota area, would all be very different today.
Hmm.
And so in my story, uh, the Métis women come up with this brilliant plan to smuggle in a weapon
Hmm.
that gives the Métis the upper hand.
Hmm.
And they do win that battle.
Hmm.
And so, and my uh, ancestors actually took part in that battle and fought with Louis Riel and Gabriel Dumont, who were the leaders of the resistance.
Hmm.
And so my relatives, my ancestors, will be making an appearance in this story. And so it's really personal to me. And I really, really hope that the anthology funds, because I want to tell this story.
Hmm.
So
That is so nice, Marcy. Thank you very much for sharing. And like you said, the story and late listeners, the short story is titled "Our Lady of the Gatling Gun."
mm-hmm.
Um, thank you very much for sharing that, and thank you for sharing that that this story is personal to you. You know, just thank you very much. Um, I'm I'm just asking this. If someone misses this campaign, let's it's fully let's say it's fully funded, you know, every the everything is all back, shipped out and everything. Do you know if there'd be maybe a website where someone can pick up a copy of this? Let me,
I'm guessing it will be something that's available on Amazon, but um, you will be able to uh, go to my website,
hmm.
and there will be a link there,
Hmm.
so that you can go
Hmm.
under my bibliography page.
Hmm.
I have links to
Hmm.
um, most of the things that I'm in,
Hmm.
and there are buy links there. They're not affiliate links;
Hmm.
they just take you to Amazon or Barnes
Hmm.
and Noble or wherever. Or of course, you can always go to your local independent bookstore and ask
Hmm.
them to order it for
Hmm.
you, which is the best way to go if you can
Yes.
do that. But I understand in this day and age, a lot of people are still staying home.
Hmm.
And so, you know, I'm not going to demonize Amazon, and,
Hmm.
because that's just some people have to use that, and that's totally okay. So,
I'm gonna say I'm trying to slowly. I know I was gonna try to keep you to an hour. Are you okay if I ask you four more questions?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So, what is your next convention or store appearance?
Um, I am not appearing. Jeff is going to be at a Western Writers thing down in Tombstone, Arizona on March 9th,
Mm-hmm.
8th, March 8th. So I will be there, but I'm not. That's, kind of his gig.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think we actually have anything planned. Oh, we have
Mm-hmm.
a library thing. When is the library thing, Jeff? Do you remember? Uh, with Andrea and Duncan. There's a local library thing that we'll be doing. We'll do a panel
That'd be nice. Mm-hmm.
and sell some books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I believe it's in May.
Mm-hmm.
I will have the information on my website
Mm-hmm.
and on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
and all of that, so you'll be able to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the next big thing that we'll do, Tucson Comic Con.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we try to go every year. Unfortunately, they changed the weekend that it's on, and that's now on Labor Day weekend, which is the exact same weekend that
Mm-hmm.
the annual Métis Festival in
Oh.
Montana
Mm-hmm.
happens. So, and that's like a big family
Oh, yes.
reunion for me. So,
Yes.
it's not as easy to say that we're going to be there all the time like we always were in the past, but we should be there this year.
Okay. Fun question. I have to ask this. We already talked about before we started the interview, before we started recording, because you are the only person I know that have seen the original Buck Rogers TV pilot from the 1970s in the movie theater. What was your experience like watching that in the movie theater?
I mean, it was incredible. Just I was obviously pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing the ships and seeing
Yes.
um, you know, Gil Gerard
Yes.
and Aaron Gray
Mm-hmm.
and I can't remember Princess Ardala, I think her name
Bar
was.
Oh God, oh, it's yes, Barbara something. I can't remember her name. I remember, yeah. I can't remember
And
her name.
like she was beautiful and deliciously evil.
Yes.
And it was totally my jam. I loved it, being able to see it up on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the same time that Star Wars was,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
out, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a wonderful time for geeky, nerdy kids
Yes.
growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Now I know because not only and Glenn A. Larson, produced Buck Rogers. He also did the original Battlestar Galactica. I know you said that you're a huge fan of Battlestar Galactica, the original from the 1970s.
yes, I was a member of their fan club. So,
Wow.
yeah. Um, I wrote Battlestar Galactica fan fiction when I was in elementary school.
Yes.
Oh, so yeah. Uh, I had the biggest crush on Richard Hatch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I got to meet um, the guy who played Boomer.
Yes.
I cannot
Herbert.
remember his name.
Oh,
Herb Jefferson. That's right,
yes.
Herb Jefferson.
Yes.
And actually, Dirk Benedict, who plays Starbuck, is
Yes.
from Montana. He's from Great Falls, Montana. So, yeah, I loved that show. I have all of the movies on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
I have all of the books.
Yes.
And they're like I take super good care of my books. Like I
Yes.
hardly ever crack the spine.
Yeah,
Those books, the spines are so cracked because I have read them
Mhm.
so many
Yes.
times. So yeah. And hey, if they ever wanted me to write something for them, uh, I have like the fan fiction that I wrote was all about a serial killer loose on the Galactica and them having to figure out, who it was. And
Hmm.
um, he was disguised as a colonial warrior because um, when they were on the bug planet, the Ovions,
Oh, yes. Yes.
they they had a bunch of civilians wearing their uniforms because they
Yes.
wanted to make it look like they were all there
Yes.
when they were really, getting prepared because
Yes.
they didn't trust them.
Yes.
And so like I wanted to use that idea of
Uh-huh.
people in these ill-fitting uniforms,
Yes.
so somebody using that as a cover to go around killing people.
Oh my God. I
So
know what.
I was twisted even back then.
No, no, but but it makes sense because, and I'm sorry, I don't mean, and if you say you got to go, let me know. But
Oh no, I scheduled plenty of time for this. So,
because I remember the scene, I remember the scene where Apollo and, oh God, who Jane Seymour, who did she play? You know,
Serena.
they're in that shuttlecraft, and they're sitting there going to the celebration, and all of a sudden you see Apollo going, huh, because there's some guy talking, and the sleeve is too long, and he goes, I guess he didn't get a chance to go to his tailor to adjust it, and nobody knows what's going on. I I remember that scene. Off the cuff question: do you have the photo novel of that pilot? Of the original TV movie pilot, or
I did. I
yeah.
don't think I do anymore.
Okay, yeah. No, I understand because same thing like me. I had the photo novel. I read it till basically the pages are coming off, and of course you have to throw it away, right? Oh,
I've moved a bazillion times
yeah,
since then, so I think it just was a case of something that didn't survive
yeah.
the
Hmm.
10 million moves. Um, yeah, I love that show. I subscribed to Starlog back in the day
I,
just so that I could read all of
yes,
the articles about it.
yeah. Because sorry, because for me, Starlog is usually it's I never subscribe to it because I even though I was young, I never figure out subscriptions, or even though I saw the ads, I'm like, I don't know what this is, and think about it too. It's hard to kind of ask, my mom, like, hey, can I get $12 to subscribe to this? And I can hear her go, wait, why are you spending money? We need to pay rent. We need to, oh, but
I
that's
had to
so.
use my babysitting money.
Okay, so I, all right, listeners know I didn't think of mowing lawns for other, I didn't mow lawns. Okay, I was just a lazy kid. Um, I'm sorry, off the cuff question. I have to ask because, like you said, you have all the books. So, did you read now? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the Death Machine, right? One of the Battlestar Galactica books. I think it's
Um,
titles.
are you talking about the original paperbacks or the ones that came out later that Richard Hatch actually
No,
put away?
the original paperbacks. I think that came out. I don't know if it was in the early '80s.
Um, so that would be the book number two that had the Frank Frazetta cover.
Yes,
Hmm.
I thought
Yes,
that was, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I have them all. There's seven of them, and I have them all. They're on my bookshelf right downstairs. I could go grab them right now
No,
and give them to you.
no.
Yes.
I just think it's so cool. I really think it is. Okay. Um, sorry, let me start wrapping this up because if not, the rest of the hours we're just going to be talking about Battlestar Galactica stuff. So, um, have you and your family visited Hawaii?
No, I have
Hmm.
never been, and I would love to go someday. But I also uh, understand that there's a lot of issues surrounding that right now, and that a lot of Native Hawaiian people don't really want visitors right now. So I, as an Indigenous person myself, I
Yeah.
want to respect that.
Mm-hmm. Um,
So I would still love to go someday, but
yes,
I
I
want
think
it. I want it to be a situation where the tourism aspect is not taking advantage of
yeah,
people that I feel solidarity
mhm,
with.
yeah. Um, I'm just I'm gonna say there is two sides to the story. And listeners, I'm not part Hawaiian or pure Hawaiian, but I've was born and raised in Hawaii. Um, it is a very sensitive issue. And I'm gonna say, like especially I'm gonna say especially I'm just gonna say especially now in Maui right now, after what happened in the Lahaina fires.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is understand. And I'm gonna say this is that um and it's documented in the news reports, local news reports too, that I know in that some residents in Maui was already talking about that there was over tourism already, even before the fires.
Right.
So yeah. Um, but unfortunately, one of our main um, but tourism is one of our main um, economy that keeps us going.
Right.
That's where it's kind of hard to balance out. Um, and Marcy, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this to listeners that that's why also too that when we ask people if they come to visit Hawaii, whether it's the Big Island, Oahu, Maui, even Molokai or Kauai or even Lanai, is we just ask people when they come is um, to please respect the land and the culture too. Because unfortunately, once in a while in the news, you see someone does something very stupid, um, um, with like in the Kilauea eruptions when that happened last year, you know, there were reports of, um, people throwing leaving trash and so forth. And I'm not, and on the mountain, on, the sacred mountain that you know, on the sacred volcano area. But I'm also going to say this too. It's not. We also have to say this too. It's just not only tourists from the mainland, but also tourists from other islands that come to visit the other islands too. That we have to respect. We have to respect um these areas. So,
Definitely. Yeah.
but yes, but one thing I do mention, if you guys do get a chance, I think you know, I encourage you to visit. Um, and I also am going to say this too, is that, um, you know, you're going to find that the Hawaiian culture is going to be very similar to your culture in some sense. The worshiping of, taking care of the land. Um, you know, some of the, some of the, what I'm trying to say is like, the gods that they worship, you know, and also to me find it very enriching to learn about the Hawaiian culture. You know, you're also going to probably hear some of the stories from here that, and I hope you do hear some of the legends and the stories that you're going to go. This kind of sort of sounds a little familiar to my culture too. That, like you said, that you're going to, um, I think you'll enjoy it. I think you have a deeper, richer meaning of it. So,
I'd like to
um,
take my kids too. My two youngest kids are half Filipino,
oh,
so they would love the food there, I'm
oh
sure.
yes. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God. Okay, so I have to say this. Okay. Um, if you guys do come to visit on Oahu, there is a Filipino restaurant called Elena's.
Mm.
I will when I Yeah, and what it is, oh my God, it's they make the best pork adobo fried rice.
Oh, that
It's
sounds
huge.
amazing.
Listeners, I'm going to say this. Well, let me preface this. I
Oh,
love
my
to eat,
my stomach is growling now. Now that you said that.
you know, um, it's back in back when I was younger, back in the 90s. I mean, this thing was huge. I could eat the whole thing in one sitting. Marcy, when you bring your family down, it's one of those where it's like you guys can cut this up, eat it, and then that's and it's best to go at breakfast time because by lunchtime you're going, no, we're fine. We don't need to eat lunch today. Oh, but oh my God, yes. So that's one place to check out. You guys got to check out. Um, I'm sorry. Okay. Last question. Any closing words to our listeners?
Just thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to this interview. Thanks for having me, Jason. And um, again, if you want to track me down anywhere, find out what I'm up to, just head to my website. Everything is linked there, marsheilarockwell.com. Um, yeah. Uh, and it's been a real pleasure, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about my work and some personal stuff. And now my tummy's really growling, so I'm gonna have to go get some fried rice.
On that note, Marcy, mahalo. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you. I wish you continued success with Marvel Zombies The Hunger. It's kind of ironic that after we talk about, Filipino fried rice, that you're hungry right now. I want to thank Carrie Harris, who had a hand in helping setting up this interview. Carrie, thank you very much. Now, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, I encourage you to pick up Marvel Zombies The Hunger from Aconyte Books. As I mentioned and Marcy knows, I've only read the first two chapters. I love it. It's great. Um, the one thing, there's a couple things I love about these books is that one, it puts spotlights on different characters of the Marvel universe, you know, um, that don't, that don't have their time in the comic books. And the other thing too is that Marcy gives Zelma and Nico um time to grow in the story, which is great. I think that's great. That's what I love about these books. And also too, the other thing I love about these books is that it opens up your imagination as for listeners, it opens up your imagination. You're not limited to, budget or page counts in this universe. So I think that's great. But again, I love that it's spotlighting different characters, and unfortunately, I'm going to say it's lesser known characters because I don't know who Zelma is. I really don't know who Nico is that much, but I get to learn who these characters are through your books. Um, the other thing I love, Marcy, as you mentioned, is that in your story, you kind of put little Easter eggs where it ties into certain comic. There are certain scenes we've read in comics. I think that's great. It really is, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be nice, and it's kind of fun. And I can't wait to read. I really can't wait to get to those points. And Marcy, I'm being serious. Listeners, if you have a friend or someone who loves reading comic books or loves the Marvel Zombie storyline, please consider picking up this book. It'll give it to them as a birthday gift or as a Christmas gift. So, please do that. It's kind of like sharing the love of comics when we were kids. Oh my God, did you read this? Here, read this. And it's just kind of like that. So I also want to thank Drew, the host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Check out beacons.ai/comics fun profit for all the C4 FAP links you could ever need, all in one place. You can provide feedback, listen, support, share, enjoy these. We have our Patreon there. You can buy us a beer or a coffee. You can check out our Instagrams, our Twitters, our Facebooks. Check out our YouTube page. You can email us. You can listen to our podcasts on Patreon, if you're a subscriber, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on Podbean. We have Google Podcasts on there. We have an Amazon wish list. You want to buy Kyle and I something? Fine. You can do that here. We appreciate it. We have Kyle's RPG podcast listed on there, so you can check out his Dork Day Afternoon offerings. We have Cowabunga links, so you can check out the Cowabunga Deep Discount FOC and pre-order list. Get on that. That's RLCS, so you can check that out as well. And we want to just give you opportunities to say hi, to check out what we're doing, support us if you would like, or just listen. Check out beacons.ai/comics fun profit for all the C4 FAP links you could ever need. Thanks.